Hello, everyone. It's Wilka here. I am your host. This episode is the Leadership Talks podcast, and today we have Neyda. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. So excited to be here.
Yes. So, Neyda, how have you been in this new journey as an entrepreneur?
I've been great. Right now, as we're speaking, I'm at week 3 of my entrepreneurship.
Excellent, excellent. I'm sure there is like those, goosebumps is like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing right now? And like
Yeah.
when you start a new job in any position, but your business is in HR, right? So
Yes.
Nada, talk to us. How did you start? How did you have the idea to get into this new venture in your life?
So I have two sides of my business. So I have the HR consulting side, which is working with small to mid-sized companies that typically don't have an HR team. That's where I come in and I help them wherever they are in their phase of their business, whether they're a startup, they need to develop policies, employee handbook, things like that. I can help with that. Or even if they've been established, but they need to revamp, or they just need the support, or they're expanding, they're growing, and they need that guidance. So I'm there for your business depending on whatever your need is, from compliance to recruiting, staffing and training, benefits. I mean, HR is so broad, so every company is different. So it really depends on where their need is. And then the other side of my business is career coaching. So I work with individuals who are job seekers. They are looking for better career opportunities, whether it's getting a promotion within their same company or getting a promotion outside of their current company. Maybe they're changing careers. Maybe they're shifting into a whole new industry. So I work with individuals, same kind of wherever they are in their journey. I help with that. I help revamp their resumes, their LinkedIn's, and I handle also individual coaching. If it's like mock interviews, make sure that, they gain the confidence to go into their interviews and feel good talking about themselves and can sell themselves to the recruiter and the hiring manager.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk to in this particular segment, Nada. And, kudos to you because I'm sure, being a Latina woman, right? Hispanic Heritage Month and now super huge for us. But, has that side of you, have you taken advantage of that as, a benefit? You can speak more than one language. How do
Yes.
you actually sell yourself for those
Oh,
organizations?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Speaking other languages definitely has its advantages because you can relate to different audiences, right? So, as you mentioned, I'm a Latina. My parents, they are from El Salvador. They migrated to the US in the early 80s. They were escaping the civil war from El Salvador. And, they came to the US with the dream of a better life, better opportunities. My parents, they only have elementary school educational background. So, they had to work since they were children. And that's just, they were poor, growing up poor. And so that's all that they could do is really just work to help their families. So they thought, once we have kids, we want to give our kids a better lifestyle, a better opportunities, education. So they made the sacrifice. They came here. So growing up, I had my American side, right? Because I'm born here and going to school here and all that. But then I also have my immigrant side with my family, with my parents. And so my parents always instilled in us, go to school, get your education. It's very important. Get a good career, make good money. That was their American dream. And so, I really took that in and always told myself that I have to be the one to really be the first in my family to do whatever it is that I need to do. And I have done that. So I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. I was the first in my family to graduate from a college, a university with a bachelor's degree. I was the first in my family to even have a corporate job. My family, my dad was a carpenter and he became a chef and then eventually a truck driver. My mom's always been a housekeeper all her life. So, that just tells you where my background comes from. So I didn't have parents who had these super awesome careers and any of that. So I really learned a lot about careers through my journey in HR. So that's why I am very passionate about helping people, especially minorities, Black and brown women and men. We don't have sometimes those examples in our families. So we kind of have to be the ones to set that example. And that's why I am very passionate in helping our communities to do that.
Well, viva la familia, pura vida.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I love to hear the humbleness, in your tone, and also bringing that into the HR, because there's so much, right? Like in terms, if you can't understand others' culture, it is difficult to navigate. And, thank God, right? We are in 2023. People are more inclusive, but of course there is also long ways to go,
Oh,
in
yeah.
those terms. But, one of the things that I loved what you said, that you do coaching too, in your business, because how do you, I wanted to learn, if you could share, what is the approach, for example, when you coach someone with our background,
Mm-hmm.
and they are interested into a corporate job, for example, in a big,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, finance firm, for example, just,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you could share any tips on how,
Yeah.
those folks could get ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I always tell people skills are very transferable. That's number one. Yeah, you might not have the experience of the actual role, but certain skills are transferable. And a lot of times, and this is something that I've always advised my hiring managers as a recruiter, is give someone who is green a chance, right? As long as they have the right attitude, the right personality, the willingness to learn, that is half the battle. You can teach people skills, you can teach them systems, you can teach them how to do the job, but you can't teach personality, you can't teach character traits, you can't teach any of that. That's already within the person. So what I tell people, if you're trying to make a shift from one industry to another, you're going to have to most likely start from the bottom in that industry, because remember, you're a newbie. However, look at your skills and look at the skills that that job description has. If you have any of those skills on there, great. How do you showcase it on your resume? So whatever the skills is, whatever that are needed for that role, when you set up your resume, that's exactly how you want it to match to that job description. You want your resume to speak, to kind of mirror that job description. I use the job description as a cheat sheet. That is, they're telling you what they're looking for in the next person that they hire. So if you're looking through the job description and you go down the bullet list of responsibilities and qualifications and all that, and if you've maybe not necessarily done that in that role, but it's similar to what you've done before, you can always share that in your resume. So that's what I always like to say, is use the resume, the job description as your cheat sheet for your resume, and your skills are transferable.
So now I totally agree with that, and I think also I want to pick your brain because, there is no job description when you are becoming an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
How did you get this idea to have your own business and, help others with your ability, and your expertise and experience in the HR role?
Yep. Well, this journey started for me back in January of 2021. We had just purchased a new home, and I was just like, I just want to make some extra money. And so it wasn't that I like needed it, but something in me was like, hey, you know what? I just want to make some extra money. I tend to have a very expensive lifestyle, so I need some money, right? So I knew that I didn't want to work a part-time for another company. I figured I need to hone in my skills, what I know, what I can do, and kind of go from there. So I was thinking. I hadn't, really, really set on anything yet. And out of nowhere, I had a friend who was also an ex-colleague. He hit me up and he was like, Neyda, I am applying for another job. My resume sucks. I haven't revamped it in years. I know you've worked in HR. Can you revamp my resume? And then that's when the light bulb just went, oh, here it is. This is it. This is what I can do to make some extra cash. So I did that. I completed his resume, I revamped it and everything. And then from there, I was like, you know what? I think I could make this into a business. So I announced it on my personal Instagram, letting my connections know that, hey, you know, I have this service. If you are interested, let me know. We could schedule time together. And I mean, it just, my inbox was out of control. People were really hitting me up like, oh my God, I need this. I'm looking for another job, or I just need a new resume, or whatever it was, or I don't have a resume. So that's when I really, really found out, okay, this is really a thing. It's really a need. And that's when it clicked that people will pay for that service. And I understand that because throughout my years, like I mentioned, I've seen resumes that are great and resumes that have sucked, where I'm like, oh my gosh, you are doing a disservice to yourself. This is why you're not getting callbacks from recruiters or hiring managers, because your resume is not telling your story. And so I knew that it was definitely going to be a thing and it was going to be a hit, in which it did. From there, I had another ex-colleague. She reached out to me and she said, Neyda, I'm working with an IT school right now. They have a program that once the students graduate, they of course start looking for a new job in that role. We would love to have you to come on board to be that career coach and revamp their resumes, help them with their LinkedIns, and you'll be working with us. So you'll always have like that consistent in terms of resumes. I was like, okay, perfect. That was when my initial work with businesses actually happened. From there, they saw what I did, they saw my work, and they asked me to consult for them because they were growing. So I said, of course, I will. I'll help you. I've established departments many times, so I'm very familiar with starting those things. So I helped them with that. And from there, my boss, she found out that I had a side hustle because I hadn't mentioned it. You know, I didn't want it to really be out there just because I'm like, you know, sometimes companies can get real iffy about you having a side job or a side gig. So anyway, she found out. And then she just said, hey, just make sure it doesn't interfere with work, which I made sure that it didn't. But I kind of put myself on the back burner because I didn't want any trouble with my current job. So I kind of put myself on the back burner, but I would still here and there do resumes, LinkedIn's and all that. But it wasn't until actually December of 22 that I was waiting on this promotion. You know, we had a director role. The current director at that time had resigned to go somewhere else. And I just knew I was the next in line. Long story short, from there, when I got to my performance review, I didn't get the title, I didn't get the role, and I didn't get the pay that I thought that I would get because I just had a hell of a year and I just knew that I was up for that promotion and I was going to get more money. That didn't happen. And so that's kind of what then just started for me to say, okay, time to come out from being on the back burner and to come on the front end for myself. And I got to put my business out there. And then now here we are.
Oh my gosh, Neyda, I love this story because it's very similar to when people ask me, oh, how did you start a podcast, right? So it's like, well, it was not from such a positive, background because, we were coming out of COVID. I wasn't still employed, yes, but, I felt that I couldn't speak up or be creative. So then I'm like, oh, what can I do for myself, right?
Yeah.
That I can ignite my creativity and also be able to speak with other folks in the hospitality industry that are going for the same thing. So huge kudos to you for, coming out of that corporate life, because I know it can be scary. Especially with, this day and age and economy and all of the, what's going to happen in 6 months or what, the housing market is going to be next year, especially you, as a new homeowner as well.
Yeah.
But, I just love how, that ignite your power to, become your own entrepreneur, start your own business, because in the end of the day, like you said, people do pay for those services, right? Because
Yeah.
people are looking for jobs every
Yeah.
day. So,
Yeah.
and either if it's within their own career or,
Hmm.
new position, revamping, a
Hmm.
resume. But one thing that got my attention, Adam,
Uh-huh.
what you just mentioned as well, that you started on Instagram and then, you
Hmm.
also redo the LinkedIn's. So
Yes.
it's many people have come to me, oh, can you help me with my LinkedIn? I was like, oh, that's not what exactly I like to do. You can look at mine,
Hmm.
go from there if you
Yeah.
work in the hospitality field too. So,
Yeah.
that's a tip. But you
Hmm.
definitely, I think, professionals like yourself, you have an organization, you work towards, you
Yeah.
train the candidates, even with the
Yep.
mock interviews, that's amazing.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so if you can talk to us a little bit about that, what is like the demographics of folks that are coming to, your business right now, and
Hmm.
what you're focusing on for 2024.
Yep. So my main audience, like I mentioned earlier, is more of the minority. So I get a lot of Black and brown men and women. Even though I tend to speak to the women a lot more because I'm a woman and I relate to a woman better. But I get both men and women in terms of the coaching, the career coaching side of things. That's usually who that's my audience. And when I announce it to my personal Instagram really consists of a lot of either friends, people I went to school with, people that I've met along the way, or, coworkers. So that's kind of been who my target audience was on my Instagram. Here and there, I would promote it on my LinkedIn, but I didn't want to heavily promote it because, like I mentioned, I just didn't want to ruffle any feathers at work. So I didn't really announce it too much, but here and there, people would know and they would hear about what I was doing, about the resume, the LinkedIn revamps. And, it's one of those things that does really well for me because it's one of those things that people would rather just pay for the service, for the convenience. They trust that I am the expert. People have followed me, have followed my journey for many years. People know me well. And so they trust that I can revamp their resumes and their LinkedIn's. So that's kind of like my demographic really is, that's my audience.
Awesome, awesome. And Nada, if someone mentioned to you, oh, I've been working on my own personal brands, because this is one of the topics that I love to speak about, because everybody can read, right, a resume, everybody can share their opinion about an industry, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. What
Mhm.
does personal branding to a candidate, how does that speak when they are applying for a position, for example?
Oh yeah. Personal branding has a lot to do with you getting your opportunities nowadays because we have LinkedIn and recruiters, hiring managers, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. They're going to look you up. They want to see what you're up to, what you're doing. They're going to really figure out, okay, if I can tell if this person is a fit, right? So it's kind of like you're getting prejudged. So you want to make sure that whatever you're posting online, that it still remains professional. And if you can talk about your experience, your skills, your knowledge, if you can share that with the world in LinkedIn, then that just shows that, your stuff, and managers are going to want to talk to you because they see that you're also reaching out to your audience. They see that you're personable. They see that you care for other people to know about what you know. Things like that really stand out to hiring managers. So yes, they do look you up online. Some will even look you up on Facebook. They might look you up on Instagram. So be very careful. If you don't want to be found, just set your profile to private so that way they don't see what you do on your personal time. But it's very important to have your personal branding. I know, like for me, for example, my branding on LinkedIn and even on my personal, I talk about work all the time. I talk about HR. I talk about what what I'm doing, what I've done, what I'm up to, things like that. And I kind of take people on a journey of what I'm doing. So it's like kind of like in a way storytelling where people really are engaged. They are keeping up with me and they're sending me messages. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you did this, or like, oh my gosh, I love this, or they'll listen to my podcast or whatever it is. People are watching, people are listening. You'll be very surprised. So your personal branding nowadays is super, super important for you to have.
Excellent, Nada. And I love this is one of my topics, right? Because I think, again, in the hospitality world, everybody knows everyone. So, how can people get in touch with you, Nada? And what is your podcast, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your TikTok?
Yeah. So I on LinkedIn, I'm Neyda Urias, Sherm CP. So you can find me there, connect with me. And I am Elevate Your Career and Elevate Your HR on Instagram. And the your is you are. I'm playing off of my last name. So instead of saying your YOUR, I say you are. And so you can follow me there. I'm slowly going to be making my way to TikTok and possibly Twitter. So you can find me there maybe later on. But yeah, definitely connect with me. My podcast is called Living La Vida de Luxury. That's where I talk about anything first gen experience, because like I mentioned, I'm a first gen myself. And so I understand the struggles that we have, what we have to go through, what we deal with, and kind of we're the trailblazers of our families. So I talk about like things, whether if it's like around finances, like even personal stuff, career, I mean, travel hacks. I talk about all those things because I want to just help first gen, or even anyone else who would be interested in kind of learning more about those topics.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I can't wait, to listen to your podcast because I think, this is one of the also ways that I've learned for myself on how to be a better, speaker. Because, like me and you, we met through LinkedIn, right? We got in touch,
Yep.
we've been supporting each other. And then I
Yep.
was like, oh, let's do a podcast together. Why not? Because this is
Yeah.
how you get connected with folks, not
Mm-hmm.
just from your industry, but worldwide, right? Like you can connect with people everywhere in the world. And
That's
also one of the highlights that I always tell people, you never know who is watching. So,
mm-hmm.
to tap into another industry, HR, it's amazing. And, sharing like the story of
Yeah.
yourself, it's, just unbelievable. So keep it up, the amazing work you're doing. And thank you so much for joining me at the Leadership Talks podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.